What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Play the Fight Song College Football Show. Another offseason episode is upon us, and the studio switched up tonight. JP is out. Jake is back in. Jake was away for some personal travel. He is back with us tonight to cover some early 2025 season hot takes for this upcoming college football season. Jake, how we doing tonight? How was your travel away? Tell us a good story. You got some good stories. A bachelor party, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And honestly, I would have been MIA last week anyways had I been around because I completely lost my voice while I was down in Arizona just due to dry air, drinking all that good stuff mixed together. So I wouldn't have been very good for the podcast last week. So I am glad to be back and I guess subbing in for JP tonight. We're just subbing in for each other now instead of all all being together at this point.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get JP back in the studio. He's a pretty busy guy throughout this season, this time of year, but then obviously full swing of things when football starts back up here shortly. But we should get him back soon. But to start off the show tonight, we want to remind you to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Everybody out there, if you're viewing the show for the first time, just do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We got different videos going out through the entire season and off season. So if you love the sport of college football, you're in the perfect place. Hit the subscribe button today. Get us to 1,000 before kickoff this year, and it'll make us very happy people. Shameless plug. The stickers are still available. Plenty left. We got the Play the Fight Song logo, the Ball Knower sticker, the all-important one that you get tagged on this show, and then the old PTFS. All three of those in one pack for $10 shipped right to your house. No shipping costs. So get those today as those are still available. Hit us in our DMs and we'll get those out to you. We appreciate all of you that have bought to this point. With that, let's go into tonight's question of the day. This one is a little fun. I believe, Jake, you made it up. So I'll let you give your answer first. But let's talk which stadium in the sport has the best backdrop. So about college football, everybody talks about whose stadiums are beautiful. What about the backdrop area of the stadium? I mean, there's a couple that obviously stand out to most people, but what takes the cake for you?
Yeah, I was going to say backdrop, I don't know, surroundings, however you want to see it. I saw this on Twitter the other day, so I thought we had to do it ourselves. I'll go basic here, but I know since it's just us two tonight, I'm sure we can bounce each other off because there's more than just one or two definitely out there. So the first one that comes to mind for me is Washington. Just like Lake Washington in the background.
Right on the water. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I've never been there, but I've heard it's like the golden gem of college football. Like it doesn't get talked about enough, frankly, in a sport that's like obsessed with, the SEC and down south and kind of the pageantry down there. But every time I hear somebody go to Washington, it's like it's the loudest stadium they've ever been to just because of the design, not because of the capacity. And then you throw Lake Washington in the background and it just looks phenomenal. There's sailgating. So they, tailgate on the water, which is, you don't get that, anywhere else in college football. So Washington for me would be number one if I had to pick.
I have a work colleague that actually did that experience back when Nebraska played out in Washington in 2010.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he said he did the sailgating, literally tailgate on the water for 2-3 hours before the game. You take the boat right up to the back of the stadium, get off, go in. He said it's his most memorable experience he had traveling to any college football stadium. And he used to travel a bunch for Nebraska games. He said it was by far the coolest thing he did, was just like on a pontoon for 3 hours, just sailing around, drinking, and then you pull up and it's game time and you're on the stadium.
It's the mix of like everything you love in life. Like you got a little bit of like summer action where you're on a pontoon on a boat out on the lake, just hanging out. And then you combine it with college football. Like I'm not really sure if it gets much better than that.
It would be an absolute electric thing to experience from top to bottom. So I like that pick. One that came to mind for me, and I first have to make another point because I know what school is going to come up when we talk about backdrops of stadiums, because it's one that I hear about enough, and that's Colorado. That's not my pick, but Colorado is talked about a lot with the mountains in the background. And I remember I was sitting next to a Colorado fan at the Nebraska-Colorado game last year in Lincoln. And I said, so what do you think of the stadium differences? Is this your first time here? Like, obviously, I've been to Folsom and Memorial Stadium now 1,000 times. It's like a different world of like college football cathedral built around you. And then this like rinky-dink Texas high school stadium. And he was like, Yeah, the stadium's a lot better, but there's just nothing to look at outside of it. Who gives a shit? What are you talking about here? Like, what do we? I get that's the point of
You're
the question.
kind of I was gonna say you're kind of defeating the point of the question now.
It's like, oh yeah, Colorado. Oh yeah, turnover, another loss. Oh, look at the mountains. Like who cares? What like the stadium is what you're there for. But that was just a different moot point. My actual pick's very similar to Colorado, but I think a little bit prettier. BYU. I think BYU Stadium is outstanding. Just the mountain drop
Been
in the
there.
background, and they have that at multiple facilities at that school. But if they do the aerial view at night or just at
Mhm.
dusk for a night game, it's a beautiful looking stadium. Have you been there, Jake?
Yeah, went
Yeah.
there last November, which was kind of disappointing in a sense. It was because it was a night game and it was in November, so it gets dark early. So by the time we get in the stadium, you don't really even see the mountain. But I mean, we were tailgating from a distance, so you could kind of see it, but you didn't really. I feel like the full BYU experience is like you said, like at dusk is kickoff time, maybe in September or something, and then it turns into night. But I mean, all in all, they didn't have much to cheer for that day, luckily for Iowa State, but one of the better atmospheres if we're just, building off of it. Like the fans were engaged from start to basically finish. And like I said, they were down 21, like 10 minutes into the game, and they still put on a really good show.
Yeah, one of the more underrated fan bases, I would say. They're pretty active both online and it's pretty nuts there for a night game. I mean, if you look back, I mean, the Utah games,
Yep.
they've played the Holy Wars. It's been outstanding the atmospheres they've created. I'm trying to think of other good backdrops. Appalachian State has a pretty good backdrop just of their general school. It's more their baseball field that's like jaw dropping, but that area and the surrounding campus is beautiful during the fall. So App State's one that comes to mind for me in the G5. Do you have any more?
I Since we've both been there, and I don't think it ever gets talked about enough, but I thought we had a really good view of it because we were on the 100th deck. I think Arkansas, I
Hmm.
don't know what direction that would be, whether it's the north end zone, like just the scenic view of Northwest Arkansas is fantastic. Obviously, you go to the other side of the stadium and it's more like just parking lot and some houses, but the one side of the end zone there, and we could see it from the deck we were on. I'm obsessed with like the foliage of the fall, like you said with App State, just it's surrounding the entire stadium. But I thought Arkansas had a little bit mix of both, and I loved Northwest Arkansas when we were down there.
One that obviously gets the hype because of the name is Ole Miss in the Grove. There are times that
Mm.
the Grove in that area is just beautiful. I would love to get down there and experience a game down there because I will say, going back to that Arkansas trip, what do you rate these? I mean, you've been to multiple Big 12 places now, usually one a year. What do you rate these tailgate scenes? Because really, the Arkansas tailgate scene wasn't bad. I mean, it was homecoming week, like parents were down there. There's a lot of people, but it wasn't just like that Midwest welcoming feeling that Nebraska and
Mhm.
Iowa State and probably Iowa are used to. What stadium that you've been to would you say was kind of like the best tailgate scene outside of course, Ames?
Arkansas was fun. It had a lot going on, but like you said, you didn't get really the welcoming environment. And
Yeah.
the comparison gets made a lot. But West Virginia has a lot of similarities between Iowa State and West Virginia tailgating. And you could tell. I mean, people were very welcoming. We joined a lot of other different tailgates. Got a very nice gentleman came up to us and brought us some family custom moonshine. So
Oh,
we got to experience like the full West Virginia effect. And
just made
yeah,
in his bathtub.
yeah, pretty
Full
much.
Morgantown experience. Oh my good God.
I just closed my eyes and it tasted a little bit like apple, and that was good enough for me. So West Virginia, they were good people. Um, I would say BYU last year, but like we had to like deep dive on the internet and like find where like the real tailgaters are because obviously, if you know anything about BYU, they don't drink. Some of them do drink, and some of them are really great people. Like I can't remember what they called the tailgate now, but they invited us over to the tent and we had a lot of fun there. So the last two, I've been pretty fortunate. Those were the two most welcoming, I definitely think.
That's fair enough. I would say, I mean, the only really true one I experienced, and it was tough because Nebraska, Colorado last year in Folsom, obviously that's a very heated rivalry with a lot of passionate history and some bad memories for a lot of people when it comes to tailgating and things like that. So the guys I traveled down there with were pretty nervous for that Colorado scene and just how hated those two programs
I
are
don't
against
think
each other.
I don't think
I
Colorado really has a hatred fan base though. Like I don't think they're like an angry.
Oh, the worst. Some of
Oh,
the worst.
they throw apples at you
Oh
guys or
shit,
what?
all the time. Yeah, no, we had to get a rental car because they'll slash your tires and stuff if they see your plates. Like horror stories over the years in Nebraska and Colorado fans. It runs deeper than you would ever believe.
But did you experience this? I'm asking you.
See, but that's where I was just going to say. I mean, obviously, that I have some head problems. That's why we're doing a college football podcast here. But I think I'm a little sick in the head because that was kind of the part of the experience that I like. Like, if I'm
Right.
traveling as a fan on the road, I expect to get chirped at and yelled at and screamed at and shit said to. Like, that is a part of being a road fan experience. It's not like when I'm rolling into Nebraska and everybody's asking you how your flight was. So I kind of expected it and wanted it to be that way, but it wasn't as bad as people had built it out to be. Like, I'm sure it was way worse at the end of the Big 12 days or, back in 1990 when Nebraska and Colorado were winning national titles. But it really wasn't bad.
It also depends on the game too. Like Nebraska, Colorado, like Iowa State's not going to be welcoming to Iowa when they come into town. But like these new Big 12 schools that are kind of unfamiliar with each other, like us going out to BYU, like I think these people are genuinely interested in being like, what the hell is out there in Iowa? And I think vice versa. Like Arizona State's going to come to town, come to Ames this year. And I don't feel like I'm biased in saying I think Iowa State, for the most part, has pretty welcoming tailgate environments. Like that's kind of one of the more passionate things that we have in our fan base.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely depends on like who's in town and what the matchup is.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed if you're somebody outside of the Midwest coming to all three of our schools, Nebraska, Iowa, or Iowa State, to not find some sort of tent, pop up, tailgate, whatever, where someone's not going to invite you in for a beer no matter what team you're wearing. Granted, now if you're Iowa and you're a Wisconsin fan, it's probably going to be much less likely than if you're somebody else rolling into Iowa City, but that's just the sport, right?
That's what I think I've said this before. I think that's what our problem was in Arkansas is we dressed up in Arkansas gear, so we just look like we belong, and
Yeah.
people aren't like opening up to people who are they just assume we know where we're going. Maybe we throw on our Iowa State, Nebraska gear or the opposing team, and they're like either chirping at you or they invite you over for conversation.
I don't know if I wanted to hear it that day. I'm glad. I would have rather tailgated myself because Nebraska lost to Minnesota. Number 2 Iowa got boat raced by Purdue. We watched that with an angry JP in a bar after Arkansas got beat by Auburn. And then I believe Iowa State had a bye, didn't they, that week?
Nope. No, they beat K-State on the road. That's just,
so it was a happy day for you. Must be nice, Jake. I was back in the Scott Frost days, so we won't relive those. We'll have all show for that.
Our sickos, that's great. People, I don't know. My girlfriend complains I can't remember what happened yesterday, but you can ask me who Iowa State played that day. We went down to Arkansas.
That's right. That's what I always say. It's the stuff that matters. I could rattle off scores from 05 all the way until now, most likely for every Nebraska game. That's just the way it is and the way your brain's wired, and that's why we do this show. Subscribe to it.
She's eavesdropping, so she's already chirping at me that it's true.
That's fair enough. That's just a part of manhood. All right, let's go into recent news. We got a lot of recent news to cover tonight. Let's lead it off with some fun news for the sport. Notre Dame and Clemson have agreed to a 12-year contract of home and homes, maybe building a new rivalry within the sport. These are two very good teams at the top of both the independents and the ACC, and look to stay that way going forward in the NIL era. I mean, we saw Notre Dame playing the national title last year. Clemson won an ACC title and compete for a couple of quarters in Austin against Texas. So this should be a really good game and both great home atmospheres for college football fans. What are your thoughts going forward to watch these two go head to head for the next decade plus a couple?
Well, I heard that they were signed up originally for 6, and then someone said that these 12 games aren't all going to be considered conference matchups. We obviously know that Notre Dame is supposed to play 5 conference ACC games or something like that. And I think it counts towards the ACC record. And maybe I'm butchering that information, but now we just get 12 straight years of presumably Marcus Freeman versus Dabo Swinney. And I think that's really good for the sport. I think it's much needed for the ACC, who is right now struggling to keep Clemson and Florida State around. So they need more, I'm going to say it, they need more TV ratings. They need more eyes on the sport. I know Clemson's a big enough brand, but I don't know how much we've really been paying attention to Clemson football, when they're playing maybe Boston College or Wake Forest as of late. It really feels like you get Clemson, Notre Dame, everyone's watching, but it's not exactly what it has been the last 4 or 5 years in this new era of college football. So I think this is really good for both schools. But yeah, another Arsenal to Notre Dame schedule. They don't, why would you need to join a conference when you can put Clemson on your schedule each and every single year?
I think a side benefit that comes for Notre Dame fans and as a team is, playing the way they do and all not being in a conference per se and playing a conference schedule. They majorly play an ACC schedule every year, but a lot of these bigger games that they play out of conference are so early in the year that you're not really getting the effect of a USC or an LSU or whoever they might pull early in the year. You're not really getting them at their stride. So I think that catching them early, and maybe if they make this game earlier in the schedule, like I can see this being a Chick-fil-A kickoff, no doubt, right? Like these two teams matching up. So I think
Notre Dame does love to play their neutral site road games.
They absolutely do it. Last year, they had him in a mental pretzel playing as many neutral site games as they did. But this is obviously going to be a hell of a matchup this year. It's going to be awesome. Watching both of these teams. I mean, there's a lot of hype around Clemson and Cade Klubnik rolling into this year and a lot of high expectations. So going forward, I don't see that going anywhere for both of these programs. So it's good news for college football. Moving on to the next point, let's talk about Akron. The Zips. The Zips are facing a bowl ban for their failure to progress academically as a team. Their rate did not reach the point, and for the first time since 2014, we have a team facing a bowl game ban because of it. Pretty shocking news. The Zips are always, on the brink of bowl eligibility. Not a team that's going to find themselves in bowl season often, but they're not finding themselves in it this year. What do you think about this?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and act like I knew the team academic progress rate and what that all entailed and how programs need to meet a certain threshold. And Akron just didn't. I don't know what the score is to keep it up. They ended at 914. Obviously, that's low enough to receive yourself from a bowl ban. It's the first one since 2014, and that team was Idaho. Makes me think. I don't know anything, but it makes me speculate, like, the way Akron's football program has been moving the last, honestly, they could say decade. Could this team jump down to FCS
drop
football?
Down to the FCS. It's a possibility.
Drop down thing. That's kind of what I saw here, and I saw that Idaho was in the exact same situation, and I think they dropped down to FCS a year or two after that. It's like, I think a team like Akron could maybe use it, and the MAC is kind of depleting a little bit with Northern Illinois leaving and all this stuff. Like, why not join the Missouri Valley and try to compete? Because these teams this team is not better than North Dakota State, South Dakota State right now. Compete with those kind of teams and maybe build yourself back up. Idaho's been in a great spot since they dropped down. It's just like, we see all these teams making the jump up, and this just made me think, like, this is more than them just getting a bowl ban. I think it looks as a program right now, what's best for the future, and it could be FCS.
It gives them the chance to be that shocker team, kind of like Idaho was last year. I mean, if people don't remember, but Idaho rolled into Eugene last week in week 1 and really took the Ducks to the brink. They went on an undefeated season, and then Idaho had a decent year themselves. So maybe Akron can be that team to drop down, compete within their conference, come up for their FBS games to get paid, and then be competitive because they're getting better FCS players rather than trying to take them and then compete against these gigantic FBS programs. So it's a definite possibility. But, I mean, I got to imagine things are going very south in the program if you can't get grades enough to go to a bowl. Like, you have to realize that somebody's in a room somewhere going, their grades didn't progress enough to where they have to do homework in December. Like, we cannot let them go to the Poinsettia Bowl. They have to be doing their work.
It's kind of sad, right? Because let's be honest, Akron's not producing NFL guys. Like, these are guys who go there on full ride scholarships to get a good degree. And it just shows, like, if you're not even winning football games and your guys aren't in the classroom, like, where's the program going right now? Like, what is the state of the program? What are your players doing on a daily basis? They're not practicing very hard and they're not in the classroom.
It just feels like everything started to go south for that program as soon as they changed away from that awesome Zip logo to that bullshit A or whatever they want to call that font that they use. So switch it back and maybe things will turn around for you, Akron. But that's obviously big news because Akron will not be a part of bowl season no matter the record. All right, let's go to some Big 12 news for our next point. I'll let Jake touch on this because he knows the guy the best. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark. Is it Yormark? Right?
Yep.
I just want to make sure it was
Yep.
spelled right on there. Brett Yormark, another 3-year extension with the conference. He'll be there until 2030 now. Do you like Brett? Your thoughts on him? And do you like the extension he get?
Yeah, I think this needs publicity because I think it's a great move for the league. I don't know, maybe pioneer is not a great word, but this is a guy who's not afraid to take risks. He's basically saved the league in all honesty with just the gamble he took on grabbing Arizona State, Colorado. He was also in the mix when he added, Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, UCF. So this guy he's really just gambled on a lot of different things, and he's kept the Big 12 relevant. There's no question a team like Iowa State or Oklahoma State couldn't be in the same position that Washington State is in, or even some of the ACC schools right now that are, like I mentioned before, holding on to seeing what Clemson and Florida State are going to do. Like they could be in no man's land, but it seems like these 16 Big 12 schools feel like they're in a good spot in a fun league that's competitive, and it's all because of Yormark and what he's built. So he's really went all in on the basketball, and I think that's paid off for him too. And it's it's interesting. I don't think the Big 12 could survive without a guy like him through this trying times of the new college football.
Yeah, I like the move because I try and think back of just the grand picture of college football and where it's headed and the narrative around the Big 12. And sometimes I got to catch, either whether it's work colleagues or just buddies around the state of Nebraska, they talk about the Big 12 and they're like, oh, well, they play in a G5. And granted, they're over dramatizing things and saying Colorado plays a weaker schedule or whatever the case may be. But I really think this extension is a product of them wanting a guy in the room that knows he's going to be there to fight for the conference going forward. Because whether that's the narrative around a couple of dipshits at Nebraska, that narrative is going to float around college football fans out of the SEC, out of the ACC. Mm-hmm. They're just going to look down on the Big 12, and to have the voice in the room that's been there for a while being like, hey, these are our programs. These are the ones we brought in. Our product is equal, if not better than what people are saying. And just having that voice be in the room to fight for these teams to get their spots that they deserve is super important. So I think that was a part of the extension. I like the move because you saw the Big 12 compete last year. And I think last year, obviously, we touched on it a bunch. Arizona State competing the way they did against Texas was massive for the conference moving forward. And I think this move goes hand in hand with it. Kind of agree with what I'm saying there, or what do you think?
I see a guy who's not afraid of Greg Sankey and who's the commissioner for the Big Ten now. I can't even remember. Not Kevin Warren, obviously.
No, not Kevin Warren, that bastard. But yeah, as long as it's not Kevin Warren, we're good.
Right. I just don't think he's afraid of the SEC and the Big Ten. And these are two teams and two conferences that are swinging much higher and paying much higher. But it's a guy right now who you kind of want leading the charge because I don't think he's afraid of what these other two are like saying about, leaving all the rest of the 134 teams and starting their own super league. I think Yormark's like, okay, we're good with what we got. We're ready for any change that comes our way.
All right, that is our Big 12 news for this week. Let's go to the last point of recent news. This one's a little fun, leaves a little question up to date. Let's hear your takes in the comments of where you think College Game Day will head. But Stanford Steve said that College Game Day will be heading to a place that Coach Corso, for his last episode, sadly, ever on College Game Day, that he's never been. So where has Coach Corso never been? I'll tell you the 6 power schools he has never been to. These are obviously possibilities, but he's never been to Illinois, Maryland, Rutgers, SMU, Syracuse, and Virginia. Now, on the page, none of those teams really strike me as like, this is where they got to go, right? Yeah. So where do you think that they'll land? I think maybe Army is a possibility. I know the Army-Navy game is super important to him, so something like that. But where do you think Coach Corso in his last game in the first week of College Game Day will be this year, Jake?
Well, I went back and listened to the quote exactly because I was like, I had heard this, and so I wanted to hear the quote word for word, and it sounded like they could do something they've never done before. I don't think it's a guarantee the way he kind of phrased it, but if we were to speculate, he's a Navy guy, kind of like your Army guess. He's a Navy guy, so Navy hosts VMI. He coached on the Navy staff. He takes a lot of pride in that
Okay,
program.
I got it backwards. That's on me. In Navy, sorry.
No, you're good. I think so. Annapolis would be maybe a good guess, but like you said, playing VMI, maybe they mix it up and go somewhere they've never been on Thursday or Friday night. Thursday night, maybe they head to South Florida, go to Tampa where they're playing Boise that night. And, there's so many games on Thursday and Friday. Like maybe they go somewhere and then they head to a place they have been on Saturday. And then the one I guessed was maybe they just do Florida State because he's a Florida State grad. He was a GA there. Florida State hosts Alabama. Maybe it's it'll be obviously a primetime game. I know that they've been there, but that's also a tie where I think that they go. As fun as the game will be, I just don't want to see him head to like Texas, Ohio State because there's no ties to Corso there, really. I mean, I guess you could say, wasn't Corso's first head he put on, wasn't it Brutus? So you could, I guess so. Maybe there is something you could tie in, but I would love for them to go somewhere they've never gone and make it actually really special for his actual last episode.
One that I thought would be awesome, but then of course the neutral site game bites you in the ass because it's a kickoff game. But they've never been to Syracuse, and Tennessee goes and plays Syracuse in Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. But if that game was on campus, to go to just being in Syracuse would be a crazy atmosphere. Like those people will show up for big games, and there's some hype going into this Syracuse season and a lot of question marks around the Tennessee team who just lost their starting quarterback a few weeks ago. So I thought that would be an awesome narrative. But then again, here we are. Neutral site games bite you in the ass. Lee Corso has been to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so I don't know if that would be the answer there. But this is a loaded week one slate. While we're on the topic, you want to drop your video you put out on our socials today on our clips. This week one slate is absolutely stacked.
Yeah, going through it got me really, really excited. I mean, there's 2 or 3 games on that are really good from Thursday to Monday. I mean, it starts with you guys. Nebraska's probably the first big game. Obviously, Iowa State and Kansas State's kind of the first big game of the official college football season. But as far as week one, like Arrowhead Stadium, Cincinnati, Nebraska's going to be great. I just mentioned USF Boise, going to be awesome. Friday's got a couple of good ones. Obviously, you have your Saturday games. That Texas-Ohio State game, not sure if we've had an out-of-conference matchup this hyped in quite some time. Like, these are going to be 2 top 5 teams who have history from how good last year's game was in the Cotton Bowl. And then you have Miami Notre Dame on Sunday, and then you have Bill Belichick's debut on Monday. I cannot remember for the life of me this has got to be one of the best slates we've ever had.
Yeah, it's absolutely loaded. And week 0 is just that nice little tease. And then week 1, I mean, you got to be glued to the television. I'm trying to look through here for the power schools. I listed Corso not being to, but none of them are sticking out to be genuinely capable of hosting. Like Western Illinois versus Illinois. Fun, sure. College game day? No shot.
You said Rutgers, and I thought of the birthplace of college football being his last. But
no, they play a bad game. I was just trying to find that because I remember seeing it earlier, and I was like, there is no shot that they are headed to Rutgers for that matchup. But I mean, they play Ohio, and that's Thursday night, so that's out of the question. That can't happen. SMU maybe.
I would love to. I'd love to see him go to Navy, go to Annapolis. I think that would be awesome. Seeing college game day on a real Service Academy campus.
That's got to be what it's going to be. That's our official guess as a show because I'm on the same page with you. It's definitely not SMU after looking at it. They play East Texas A&M. So I do not believe that will host.
It's either that or it's Florida State. I think he's just going back to where they play Alabama. That's an easy one. I feel like that's got to be my option B.
Going to be an emotional show. Nonetheless, everybody will be tuned in for Coach Corso's last college game day as he basically vitalized that show to the 30 years it's been running and made it is to what it is now for all of us. So shout out to him. That will be an emotional show to watch. Let's move it down to the transfer portal and out of recent news. Some transfer portal names that we're just going to talk through. I'll briefly go through the ones on our sheet, and then I'll let Jake kind of talk about the ones he likes. Not a ton, but LSU adds Houston's best defensive player from last season to their good portal class already. A.J. Hawley, the safety for Houston, great player, good addition to their backside. And then Gavin Sawchuk, the running back from Oklahoma, he heads to Florida State. That's a big pickup for them. Jonte Cook from wide receiver, formerly for Washington and Texas. He goes to Syracuse, a team that we just mentioned has a huge week 1 matchup. And then Miami finally adds to their special teams, as they've had a lot of names rolling in and out of that program through this class. Texas kicker Bert Auburn, who was very well known last year for the missed kicks against Arizona State. And then BYU kick returner and wide receiver Keelan Marion. 2 big ads. Miami needs to improve on special teams, as it kind of killed them last year in a few spots. But what do you think of the names I just included, and give us a few notes?
I don't want to, kind of reiterate what you guys said last week. So I know JP mentioned LSU and Miami's class and what they've done in the spring. And it's been really good, but they just added Halsey even before last week. So I know they went after some big defensive linemen, and now they get another guy in the secondary, specifically at the safety spot. Halsey was, I think, their best defensive player. Had 7 interceptions last year, was really, really good for them on a decent Houston defense. Gavin Sawchuk was basically Oklahoma's 1B running back in 2023, and he had over 700 yards. Good pickup for them. Sorry, got my cold here.
It's all good.
Jonte Cook transfers from Texas to Washington over the spring, doesn't work out, heads to Syracuse. I highlighted this name because I think it's really good. Trevor Pena, obviously we know, transfers out from the spring, heads to Penn State. Name. Yeah, and now Syracuse needs another guy. And I just trust Steve Angeli and Fran Brown in that offense I think they're going to just throw the ball a ton. And I think it's a good fit for Cook, who has a lot of upside. And then Miami got a bunch of dudes defensively last week, and then they go and pick up a pretty good kicker. And then one of the best, Swiss Army knives in the portal left in Keelan Marion, who can do a lot. And he had 3 or 4 kick returns for touchdowns last year. So really good for all those guys.
Yeah, we talk about Syracuse, and so many things come to mind from what they did last season. First year under a new guy. What are they going to look like? Are they just going to spread it out and take their chances? And it looks like they did, right? Like Kyle McCord led college football in passing. The guy that everybody was talking, Honda McCord, right? That's they were calling him at Ohio State. He goes over to Syracuse, and that system slings for thousands of yards and leads college football. And then he goes in and gets signed to an NFL team. All of a sudden, and here we are talking about a new quarterback in Steve Angeli transferring over from Notre Dame. Can he fill that spot? I mean, Kyle McCord, the guy you all hated, and granted, Ohio State fans can go over the top sometimes, led college football in passing, people. Like, that's their system. So I like the fit. Obviously, adding weapons is going to be huge within that offense, because they have shown and are going to continue to throw the football around. So that's a massive piece. And then Miami, they just keep getting these little nice additions. And I think people are trying to kind of forgetting that he may not have gotten drafted and fell off after the combine and their pro day performances, but Xavier Restrepo was a massive piece of their success with Cam Ward last year, and they're looking to really fill that gap. So any addition at the wide receiver position or guys they could utilize in any spot in the slot, it's going to be huge for that offense moving forward in the ACC. So those are our brief transfer portal news and thoughts. Obviously, the windows died down. A lot of the movements died down. The names have died down. We're finally getting a good picture of what our teams are going to look like in this upcoming season, which is just, it's in the 100-day range. We'll say that. It's not 100 days, but we're nearing that point.
Look.
108 days. Yeah. 108
keep everybody
days.
Reminded on the show here.
Yeah, I just let them know in case they can't see the 11 helmets behind me. I probably should change that. But 108 days we are away from kickoff. So we will get a better picture. We're almost in preview season. Shout out Phil Steele. Shout out Pick 6. Keep an eye out. Get your Pick 6 preview this year, people. Keep an eye out. Little teaser there. But now let's go into the point of tonight's show. So it might be a little bit shorter depending on how many hot takes and how many discussions we roll off this. But let's talk hot takes rolling into the 2025 college football season. This could be anything. Individual teams, conferences as a whole. Whatever you think might be a topic that people may not agree with off the rip majority of the time, let's share it here. Open up to you, Jake, first. I'll give you a response if you earn one, tell you if it's hot or cold, and we'll let it roll from there. Give us your first hot take rolling into the 2025 season.
Yeah, I think hot takes can be very subjective, so take it for what it is. I think we'll stick to what I think I know. I think the Big 12 this year is going to be quote unquote boring. And I mean, I think the top of the league as far as preseason odds go, it's going to stay there. I know we've guessed a lot in the past that a team who's preseason ranked, what is it, 10th or below, at least one of those teams has made the conference title the last 2 or 3 years. I just don't know if I see that this year. I look at teams like BYU, Iowa State, Baylor, Arizona State, and I feel like Kansas State. Sorry. So those are like your five, where those are five teams who didn't grab more than 9 or 10 guys in the portal, return a ton, return all of their quarterbacks. And I just trust them and have all their coaches. Like, I know teams can be flipped pretty quickly with a bunch of portal additions and stuff like that, but one common denominator that feels pretty safe is a coach that's been around and a quarterback that's been around. And I think that's going to pay dividends for the Big 12 this year. So I don't really know if we're going to get a surprise team in the Big 12, a Cinderella team. Going off of that, guess who is the number one in odds to win the Big 12 this year?
I mean, you would figure Arizona State, correct? It's probably not.
It would not be. They're second. Number one would be Texas Tech. And that's where my other hot take is going to. I don't think
that's
it's
a little
work.
portal. That's portal overhaul, right? It's a little hype over the portal overhaul.
In a world where Joey McGuire needs to keep his job and they have the money to do it, they have basically pushed all their chips in and they said, okay, Joey, here it is. Here's everything you need. You got to go out and win now, or you have no excuses, or we'll move on to somebody that can make this work with the money that we have. And I just don't know if it's going to work. Now, will they be okay, win 7, 8 games? Sure. It kind of reminds me of his best buddy, Dion. Like last year, Colorado was a good team, had a chance to make the Big 12 title game, but down the stretch, they crapped down their leg in Lawrence, or I guess in Kansas City against Kansas. It just feels like when you get so many guys in the spring and in the winter, and you're just putting so many new faces in, I think it's just hard. Football is a hard sport to build culture around. Look at Ole Miss last year. Really, really good team at their best, maybe the best team in college football. But guess what? The team lost to Kentucky at home, and then a couple of bad other losses along the way because honestly, the chemistry wasn't there, and I don't think the culture was there. And I know that's cliche to say, but I just don't see this Texas Tech experiment working out the way they think it's going to, in like winning 10 games and going straight to Dallas. I'm skeptical on it. I don't think it's going to work.
I don't disagree. I think that is a fair place to put it because we've seen transfer classes with all the hype in the world not pan out for a lot of schools. And it just feels like Texas Tech is that team that both myself and a decent amount of the college football media world has been high on in the preseason. And then all of a sudden you look and their quarterback's injured and they lose a wide receiver or they lose a lineman. And all of a sudden they're a 6-7 win football team. I don't know if that excuse is there this year with the amount of depth that they built. I mean, they're bringing in 30 guys, 35 guys and something like that. Something stupid.
At least 20. The portal's good. You look at Ohio State, you look at Oregon. Those are teams that are they bring in like 8, maybe 10 guys through the portal. But you don't get to the playoff by bringing 20, 25 guys in. I guess maybe unless you're Kurt Signetti in a one-time thing. We'll see how that keeps going. Maybe that might be my hot take next. But the odds show that it's more so not going to work in your favor rather than it is.
All right. I like that one. I think that's not the hottest take I've ever heard, and I think you would get more people in agreement. It's definitely not cold, though, especially with them being the odds-on favorite now after their massive portal season. I'll give one that is a little bit more coaching-based, and obviously this is not something you ever hope for, and if you're, by God, hearing this, come on the show. But I truthfully think that if this season does not go correct for Luke Fickell, and I'm saying correct, I mean they need to win 8 games, I think Luke Fickell's getting booted out the door. And I know people have more. They want to give him more time, right? It's only been 2 years. It just hasn't been like but it's not even remotely close to the standard of Wisconsin football with the amount of things that he's tried to change. But I think if Luke Fickell does not get to 8 wins this season, he's getting fired. I think even 7-5, they're going to look somewhere else because you cannot compete within this conference as it's going forward in college football, winning 7 games. And I just don't see if they have a ceiling ever higher with that, with the scheme and system he's brought in. But with the transfers he's made and the injuries to sustain and the depth issues and the scheme change, Wisconsin fans are pissed, and rightfully so. So I don't think, I think that's a fair place to put it. I mean, GA, we watched Nebraska beat up on them for the first time in a decade last year under Fickell. Why I don't think it is talked about enough. Luke Fickell is coaching for his job this year, and I think it's going to take 8 wins to get Wisconsin fans off of him. But they're not going to get there.
No, I don't think I really don't think that's a crazy take, especially just in this day and age of college football. Fans are really quick to just pull the trigger on coaches getting fired. Like we said,
because you can get everybody, right? They're like, oh, well, we don't have to wait another 4 years. Like, no, just go get them now.
Yeah, go get another guy now. You can get a new coach who can bring his team from somewhere else through the portal, and you can flip a team around again, like Cignetti. I think Cignetti might be coach's nightmare. Like, his example might be a coach's nightmare now, just because like how many ADs and how many fan bases are now just going to point that example of, look what Indiana did. Indiana didn't win for years, and they bring in this guy who brings in his guys from JMU. If it can happen there, it can happen here. And Wisconsin definitely holds itself to a higher standard than Indiana. No shade at Indiana, but they just do.
All right, Jake, give us another hot take. Give us another topic that the college football world's not thinking about.
Okay, I pondered on this one. I don't know. Okay, we'll say this. I don't think the SEC or the Big Ten will get more than 3 teams into the playoff this year. I think they both could get 3, but I think neither conference will get 4 this year. And 12 being, that would probably imply 2 Big 12, 2 ACC, Notre Dame, and your G5. And then you have 3 from the SEC and 3 from the Big Ten. Now, even if the competitive balance was at an all-time high, and I think that this year, I have said it on this show many times, I think this year has the chance to be one of the more competitive seasons we've ever had.
I agree.
I don't know if I trust the committee to actually leave out a 4th SEC or Big Ten team, but if I wanted to go bold, and we're going bold tonight, I think that it possibly could be your Big Ten teams being Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. You don't get an Indiana this year. Maybe we talked about Illinois. Maybe Illinois isn't as good as we thought they were going to be. And then what would need to happen is 2 things. The Big 12 has got to put. I think you need an 11-1 team, and I think you need at least a 10-2 team. Those 2 teams play in Dallas. Like, that would have to be it. And there's some big non-con games for the Big 12 this year that I think you got to win. On top of that, the ACC would also need 2 in. I mean, they got 2 in last year. Again, it's really hard to pave the way, but you need a team like SMU who runs the table, and then a Clemson team who upsets them. You're going to need some stuff like that on both the ACC and the Big 12 to make it happen. We'll see. We're not going to get 2 G5 teams in, but we are guaranteed 1. So you need a lot to do it. I think it's possible.
I don't want to say it's not hot, because I do think the majority of college football fans would disagree with that point. They would think either one or the other is getting 4 teams in at minimum. But the more I talk about this next season, and JP and I talked about it last week a lot, is I feel like these last few years of college football, we've had this clear-cut picture of, this team is absolutely loaded. It would take a lot for them to not make the national title game and probably win the son of a gun. Because you look back at the Georgias and last year's Ohio State, $30 million roster, Quinshaw Judkins, all the receivers. They bring in Will Howard, who's played 10 years of college football. Like, all of these factors went into us being like, man, it would be crazy if Ohio State doesn't win the national title. To me, there's not that team in my mind. Like,
Yep.
it could be LSU. It could be Oregon again. I mean, but Oregon has a question mark at quarterback. Like, there is not one team standing out to me. So do these conferences beat up on each other enough to where there's not like, we can't put 4 9-3 teams in, but if they beat up on each other enough, you're going to do what the Sun Belt does usually, where it's like, this team's really good, but they're just not going to get the national spotlight because they got beat by another pretty decent team within the Sun Belt. Like, G5 teams do this all the time because they don't have like that clear cut picture winner at the top. So is that going to be the picture now where there's a bunch of 9-3 teams, or even an 8-4 team with 8 really impressive wins that just can't make the argument because of what's going on in other conferences? There's just not that clear cut, this team should probably win the national championship to me right now.
No.
What do you think?
I think that you're exactly right. I mean, it is May, and we're going to get to preview seasons here, and we're going to look at rosters.
Yep.
But last year, I think there was, Georgia, Ohio State. I don't know if I even had another one on the top of my head that I really thought was clear.
You're like, man, Miami could do it, but even this year, Miami didn't do it.
They need things to go their way. Here's the way I see. Let's just talk about the two big heads here, SEC and Big Ten. I think the SEC this year, I mean, last year, they kind of killed each other. Like, it was kind of masochist. And I think that that's very possible again in the SEC. The Big Ten, I'm a little iffy on, just because sometimes the bottom of the Big Ten is way worse than the bottom of the SEC. And you're going to need teams, honestly, like you're going to need teams like Nebraska. You're going to need teams like Iowa, Michigan State, maybe. Like, those kind of teams are going to need to be good, and they're going to need to win 8, maybe 9 games respectively, because, like, think of the last time Penn State's lost to somebody that's not named Ohio State or Michigan. Like, it just doesn't. They don't lose to those kind of teams, and that's how you get your 4 Big Ten teams in, when Penn State runs the table, and then their only loss is Ohio State. And then Ohio State runs the table, and Oregon loses their only losses to Ohio State. Like, that's how it's tough to keep those 4 Big Ten teams out. But I think it's very easy for the SEC to keep each other out. It's just that there's 75% of college football fans who don't fully watch the sport think they should have 8 teams in because they all beat each other, even though the Big 12 basically does the same thing.
Yeah, I like that point. I mean, you could roll on this topic all night with where college football is going to be. And I mean, what the committee looks like is a huge aspect of this. I know that they just added another Big Ten AD in Troy Dannon, Nebraska. He just joined the college football playoff committee. So the conversations in that room are going to be controlled by the people in it, right? So God knows where this will be at the end of the year. So good one there. I'll go to my next one. This one is a Big Ten targeted team, and it's unfortunate JP's not here for this episode, and I'm sure he'll chirp me next show for it. But I'm going to go out and boldly say that Kirk Ferentz gets the nice boot out of the door after this season. I truly believe it.
Like a mutual parting of ways.
Yes. Like, I think this is it for Kirk Ferentz. I really do. Because of the pieces he lost last year on defense. Like, this defense was outstanding again. They have the best defensive coordinator, or at least top 2, and it probably ain't 2, in Phil Parker, and how consistent they've been. But the amount of things they've lost and the way they handle the transfer portal, it just feels like Kirk is falling further and further behind the times, right? Like, I don't know if Kirk's going to be in that seat when Iowa takes the next step, especially now in this Big Ten. So when will Beth Getz move on? I feel like after this season and the turnover they've experienced with the massive players, like, there's no reason for me to think that the quarterback transfer they brought in, one of the better quarterbacks in the FCS, and Mark Glenkowski, is that Gronowski coming in, that he is going to be the difference maker. Because, to be honest with you, it's been a quarterback graveyard for the last 10 years. And it's not a place where quarterbacks go to excel their game. You're basically relying on a Caleb Johnson-less backfield and a wide receiver core that was not up throughout any of the portal season. So there's nothing on paper for me, especially even with Tim Lester's offense last year, that I was like, yep, that was the jump they needed. Like, it just feels stagnant, and they lost so many pieces. I think they're going to win 7 games, and the parting mutual of ways will happen.
I just wonder, we obviously need JP to answer this question.
And he would be pissed at me saying that, but maybe he would be like, I think that could still happen.
I just wonder what the expectation is for Iowa this year. Like, I genuinely am not sure what the expectation of the fan base is, because part of me thinks I think it is 7 or 8 wins. I don't think that this is a team they're super confident in. But maybe I'm wrong in saying that. That's why I think we need our expert back on the show to answer that question. But I don't think because it's like, what are the expectations, right? If the expectation is just to win 7 games, why wouldn't you keep Kirk around again next year if he goes 7-5? But if the expectation if it was kind of like last year to win 9, 10 games, easy schedule, then yeah, I think then the pressure is on for Kirk and seeing what his future is like and if it's best for Iowa football going forward.
From an outsider perspective, I'll tell you my expectation is that the parting of ways happens. LeVar Woods, their special team coach, takes over. Phil Parker goes with Ferentz because Phil Parker's an old guy. I think that's just a kind of a package duo at this point. And it's going to be a new look Iowa team, and God knows where they'll go from there. But I think the move needs to happen. Like, I just feel like Iowa's at this stagnant point where they were at their best stretch in school history after, an undefeated season, and they're making the Big Ten championship and playing a Michigan Cade McNamara team, and JJ McCarthy team. And all of a sudden, like last year, they're just kind of back here. And in bowl season, they're up and down. And I know JP talks about it as a developmental program, but when's the next step for that fan base? When's it going to hit? Because I don't think Kirk's going to be the guy to do so. I mean, maybe that's a rival bias floating out. I just think that it's not going to happen with him.
Speaking of hot takes, and I don't really have any for your team, but I do have a question. Did you know that I didn't know this? Matt Rule hasn't beaten a ranked team since he's been at Temple.
Yeah, he only has like 2 ranked wins, but he didn't run into a lot at Baylor. That was
I know
a
he
down year for the
didn't, but it was
12.
just like I know he won like 10 games that one year, and I was just like, well, I thought he, probably had won, like beaten a ranked team. It's just you talk
Let
about
me just
hot
put it
takes.
this way: if there's a negative take, or not even a take, but a negative statistic around a Nebraska coach, I've heard it. It's been out there. It'll get Twitter fired up. So they're always out there floating around. It's not something I've worried about. I mean, he probably should have done it last year with Illinois. That game went down to the wire. There was somebody that was like ranked that he beat in his first year in Nebraska. That was like, maybe they're receiving votes or something like that. God knows, people find their way around any narrative or in the sport. So it's not something that concerns me as of now. But year 3 and year 4 coming up, it's kind of, hey, this is what your resume says. You're getting the expectation from the fan base.
Thought about hot takes, and Nebraska is always a good conversation starter in hot takes. That's why.
Things going negatively for Nebraska? No, that doesn't happen. That can't be a part of this conversation. They have to be, an 8-9 win team this year to be on schedule. That nothing else can happen to that program. Right, GA? All right. That is my last hot take. Do you have any more floating out there?
I was trying to keep.
I did want to talk about Illinois. I know our clip blew up, and I hyped them up a lot as a team that could find themselves in Indianapolis. I'll just throw that out there. If we want to have a conversation about Illinois not panning out, I would hear it out.
I wanted to do a G5 topic, but I was also thinking like the subject of, isn't there a stat like teams? There's always been one team that starts preseason top 10 and doesn't even make the top 25 by the end of it. I was trying to think of who it was. For me on that list, I think it was BYU. I think BYU is probably a team that maybe doesn't make the top 25 if I had to look at one. But that was kind of because I was like, is Illinois in there? And I don't even think that Illinois was in the top 10, but I liked your Illinois prediction. I think it'll be interesting. I always get worrisome about those teams that and Iowa State's honestly in it. Those teams that live in close games just doesn't usually pan out for 10-win season after 10-win season. Usually you're just you're on the wrong side of the ball. Like one year you get lucky and you win those close games. The other, it just doesn't usually result in you winning close games all the time.
Yeah, one that comes to mind with Illinois is they have the hype around them now. And I wonder if last year, the way they competed against top 25 teams on the road as an underdog consistently, was that a part of because it was just Illinois then? Like if them having a number 11 or a number 12 next to them, does that change the look of people towards the program?
It reminds me of Iowa State in 2021. That year they won the COVID Fiesta Bowl. There was a big target. Like people were projecting them to make the 4-team playoff. It's different when the eyes are on you and you're just not used to it. And I think Illinois definitely falls under that category.
So that's where I see it. I think that's a good place to leave Illinois because we could go on them all night. Any other takes? Sorry to steal that one in there, but
no,
what do you think hot takes in there?
I think that for the G5, I don't know. I don't even know if it's a take, but I think the American Athletic Conference needs to get the G5 auto bid this year. I think they desperately are relying on it. I think that top to bottom, they're usually the best. We've talked about it, them being the best league out of the G5s. You are having one of your top 3 or 4 teams play Boise on your home turf week 1. We talked about it Thursday night in Tampa. Got to win that game. Got to win that game. You got to eliminate Boise from contention. You got to eliminate all of these other guys. The G5 or the American Athletic Conference needs Memphis, USF, Tulane, like one of those guys to get in this year.
Yeah, I feel like one of the teams that could get in, I think UNLV could be that team.
Yep.
Right.
I think UNLV is a good team. Dan
Mullen coming in. I mean, this is a guy that, has SEC experience. It didn't always go the best for him within that conference. Let's say that in the nicest way possible. But I mean, they have talent. They've been able to retain talent. Barry Odom was good there. What's to say Dan Mullen can't roll in there and be the G5 representative his first year? I don't think there's anything out there telling you that he absolutely cannot. But you mean, look where Barry Odom ended up. He's probably going to win 2 games this year at Purdue. I mean, I'm a little higher on Purdue than people think, but after looking at their schedule, oh my God, if I had Purdue's schedule, I would be losing sleep. That back half of that schedule, they play like 2 really bad teams, a couple of FCS teams like Southern Illinois. But then after that, it's like USC at home, and then on the road at Ohio State, on the road at Indiana. I mean, they don't miss anybody. So good luck, Purdue and Barry Odom in their first year. But going back to UNLV, where Barry Odom was, I think they could be the G5 representative. And we'll talk more G5 going forward throughout this college football season and definitely through preview season. Hopefully we'll bring on some special guests for those. But the G5 is always a fun topic to cover because it's really year by year with all these teams and movement. This comment came in from GA, ranking things S, A, B, C, D, or F is all the rage on YouTube right now. If we want to piss some fan bases off, we could rank all the teams in the conference. I like this topic, and maybe something we'll adapt going forward, GA. I really do think that this could get some clicks and really get some fan bases rolling, especially, like some Tech, Penn State, and West Virginia's always a fan base that comes at our throats sometimes.
What's an S ranking?
Got to be superior, right?
Okay.
If it's above A, correct me if I'm wrong, GA. That's got to be like they're S tier. They're superior in the conference, and then there's A list teams and B list teams. I mean, I definitely don't think it's on the bottom half, but yeah, that's something we'll definitely do for going forward. I love that idea. Shout out to GA in the comments once again. AWL of the week. But that is everything we wanted to cover tonight. We covered a few hot takes. We'll put these posts out on Twitter. Interact with us over at Play the Fight Pod on X. Hit the follow button on all socials. All of it's at Play the Fight Pod. Shout out to our partner, No Rivals. Haven't talked about them tonight. Definitely need to do so. ShopNoRivals.com. Check out their premium collegiate headwear. Jake's got a couple of new looks for you. Got the Ole Miss hat, the classic collection, and the upside down Colorado State. Good looks. So check them out today at ShopNoRivals.com. Use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on all of those awesome hats. Get your hats, gear up for the upcoming season. I got my Tops Espresso collection, little brown, little cream, goes with everything. Shout out to the great team over at No Rival for those awesome designs and teams. Keep them coming. All right, that's everything. We appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next week. Hit your stickers. Get them through us via the DM. Just shoot us a note that you want some. We'll get your address. We'll send them out to you. $10 delivered. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Jake, take us away.
Play it.